Back in 2008, during an interview at Microsoft headquarters, shortly before leaving his full-time role at the company, Bill Gates dismissed the question of whether he might someday feel compelled to return to run Microsoft again.
Can you imagine any circumstance under which you would feel compelled to return to Microsoft full-time?
No.
Okay.
But in a recent interview, nearly 17 years later, Gates acknowledged that he did actually grapple with this concern at times in his Microsoft career when he contemplated what it would be like after eventually stepping down.
I always thought, oh God, I'm going to leave and the company's going to get screwed up and I'm not going to know what to do. Do I go back? Do I not go back? Oh, this is going to be torturous.
Fortunately for him and for the company, he has not needed to deal with that dilemma.
The fact that, along with many other companies, it's doing incredibly well is a great thrill for me.
As planned, when Bill Gates left his full-time role, he still contributes as a part-time advisor to the company. He meets regularly with Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella and Microsoft's technical and product teams. And in that capacity, he takes the long view, describing the rise of artificial intelligence today as the continuation and repetition of a pattern that he recognized in the early days of the personal computer.
Computing was becoming free, and because it was free, could we use it for word processing or spreadsheets or email or things like that? We were evangelizing this as this incredible tool and then connecting them together. Now, intelligence is becoming free, and that's even more profound than computing becoming free.
Coming up on this special episode of the GeekWire podcast, as part of our Microsoft at 50 series, we talk with Bill Gates about the company's 50th anniversary, parallels between AI and the early days of the PC, and where he sees the big opportunities for innovation next. That's coming up after this. Microsoft at 50 is an independent GeekWire editorial project made possible with support from Accenture.
Hello. John Gingrich here, Senior Managing Director and Global Lead of our Microsoft account at Accenture. Accenture proudly recognizes Microsoft's 50th anniversary, and we're honored to mark our 35-year relationship as a trusted partner and change driver, delivering comprehensive services spanning 120 countries in support of Microsoft's enterprise. Together, we're positioned to deliver transformation for the next 50 years. We're ready. Let there be change.
For more installments in the Microsoft at 50 series and links to more information about Accenture's work with Microsoft, see geekwire.com/Microsoft50. That's geekwire.com/Microsoft50. Welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop, and I recently sat down with Bill Gates for a wide-ranging interview coinciding with his new book, Source Code: My Beginnings. You can hear part one in our episode that ran last week, focusing on his upbringing in Seattle, the influential people in his life, the early days of the company, and his perspective on the events now unfolding in the world. But we also spent time talking about Microsoft's evolution and what's next for the company and the industry. Here's the rest of my conversation with Bill Gates.
In many ways, the story that you tell in this book is still unfolding. And I'm wondering if you see parallels between the early days of the PC revolution, as you tell toward the end of this book, and the current era of the cloud and the AI in terms of the business models and the technologies, similarities and differences.
Well, this era is new and different, and it's a continuation. So the mind-blowing thing about the PC era is how few people are involved. We are truly obscure people. West Coast Computer Fair, Krememco, Processor-Tech, IMSci, Apple, Sphere, we're all there. And the majority of all the personal computer stuff, there's a little bit in Japan, a little bit in France, but, it's this very small group. And people have different views on, okay, what kind of tool will the computer be? For Paul and I, we thought, okay, this is not only going to replace mainframes and mini computers, very expensive machines before then, but also create a whole new modality of use, which is why we said a computer on every desk and in every home, which other people were like, what? in every home. What's that? And so it was a small band of kind of revolutionaries who believed in this thing. Apple comes in a tiny bit after we're formed. So you have Apple II, Commodore PET, Radio Shack, TRS-80, and people are surprised. And even inside IBM, even once they do a home computer project, they think it's this, tiny little nothing thing that they're going to kind of just see, can we do it fast? And they had this Boca Raton division whose previous product had failed, so they wanted to give them something to do. And so, it's kind of this miraculous thing. My way of describing that was that computing was becoming free. And because it was free, could we use it for word processing or spreadsheets or email or things like that? And I was and others, we were evangelizing this as this incredible tool and then connecting them together. Now, what's happening is intelligence is becoming free. And that's even more profound than computing becoming free. There was a lot of naivete by me and others about how quickly we'd move from computing to intelligence, speech recognition, visual recognition. We thought, hey, we're just, a few million lines of code away from, solving those problems. And yet most of the techniques only made minor improvements until the neural nets come along, and then large language models come along, and then attention comes along. And so even I, was very taken at the demo of ChatGPT-4 that the OpenAI team did it at my house. I consider that as seminal a demo and similar to sitting at Xerox PARC with Charles Simoni and seeing on the Alto, the original graphics interface. That kind of set the agenda of the software focus that Microsoft would have for the next several decades. And now this idea that AI can read and write and store knowledge is going to set kind of an industry agenda. So it's different in that now you have hundreds of billions of dollars, and there's nothing obscure about it. When the PC was finally on in Time Magazine or Business Week, we were like, wow, people are noticing us. But AI is in every business magazine every week.
I was actually going back and rereading The Road Ahead from 1995 and 1996, your book at the time, and I got a chance to speak with Peter Renierson, one of your co-authors on that book. And one of the things we talked about was that one of the visions that you had at that point was for software agents, and you're now just seeing this start to happen. Information at your fingertips with Windows Recall, and this whole notion that agents will be able to remember user preferences and act on their behalf. It's just happening now. How do you see all of this unfolding over the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, it's moving pretty quickly. We have a lot of work to do on reliability. In a certain sense, like say doing a medical diagnosis, we in many respects are better than humans at that, the AI software. But there are times where it gets off the path and it'll make mistakes humans won't make. And so that's the big focus, that, okay, can you trust this to do tech support calls or follow-up medical calls? There are techniques that will deal with that, and there's different opinions, wide range of opinions of how quickly we'll drive that reliability forward. I tend to be somewhat on the optimistic side, seeing exactly how that's going to work. So there's a fervor here and some pretty profound tools in education and in health and scientific discovery. The Gates Foundation is applying these things. Trevor Mundell, who runs our global health thing, has always loved AI and followed it very closely. And so, we have our partners all doing drug discovery using these new tools, and even the healthcare delivery, where in the poor countries, the shortage of expertise of doctors and teachers is even more profound than in rich countries. So, I'm both doing whatever I can to brainstorm with Satya or Sam, and I'm very lucky that they include me in those discussions, and then applying it to the Gates Foundation work and even the climate breakthrough energy work that I do.
With the PC revolution, there were killer apps, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I tend to think of the spreadsheet as the original.
It's one of them, yes.
It's one of them. Have we yet seen the killer app, the application that makes AI clearly a value add? Is it ChatGPT, or is there something beyond that?
Well, ChatGPT is kind of a horizontal tool.
Right.
And they've done a great job getting user usage and momentum. And there are things like organize all my messages, where the way it works today, you go into your text messages, your mail messages, your Instagram messages, they're all separate. You don't really trust the computer to order them for you. If you want to see all the information about, say I'm working on malaria, I've got notes, I've got spreadsheets, I've got mail messages. The way you work in the computer is a very low-level semantic today. You have to think, okay, what's in that file? The computer is not, in terms of tasks and activities, you can't say to it, okay, I'm working on malaria, and have it, pull all that stuff in. So we're finally changing that. So, I want to plan a trip with my kids to go see some colleges. We gather data from websites, look at my calendar, show me the information about the colleges. You can take very high-level tasks, and the software will be working at your level. And so, I've been writing and dreaming about this. It's partly why they pull me in, is because they read my old agent memos and they're like, oh God, maybe we can actually do this now. Yes. The dream of AI, predates my birth, that people like, Turing asked how far could we go. When I was young, we already had robots, Shaky the robot. So the fascination with how do you go from computing to intelligence, my whole career, that's been this big open question, where even though we've made progress, it was very slow until the last, really, I say the reading, writing thing, which is only just 3 years ago.
As you mentioned, Microsoft is turning 50 this year, and in many ways, the story that you're writing in this book is still unfolding. And you and this company are forever linked, obviously. And at one point, you imagined that this software factory, as you called it, might have a few dozen employees. Can you take a few moments to reflect on what Microsoft has become from that two-person partnership that you and Paul Allen started in 1975 to what the company is today?
Well, we had crazy ideas early on that software would be important and that we would know how to hire people, write better software tools, and we would do just all kinds of software. And many of our competitors were single product companies. I mean, great companies, but Lotus is the 1, 2, 3 company. WordPerfect has this amazing word processor called WordPerfect. And we just write software, and we're global. We're in Japan, we're in Europe. We don't have these funny distributors. We have employees, and so we're taking this very long-term view, and we are hiring IQ like mad. So until Google comes along, there really is not a horizontal company that's thinking about software in this very, very broad way. And so even though software products are it's hard to dislodge a software product because people are used to the command structure, and you're giving them feedback about what features you want, and you have these funny file formats and all these things. It's very hard to take a leading software product and replace it. It doesn't happen. It shouldn't happen very often. But we, whether it was spreadsheets, word processors, database, presentation, you name it, through Windows, through Office. By the late 90s, we were so successful that even I could say, okay, we might even make a few mistakes and not, disappear. Because I was always running scared, and it's not until like 1998 or 99, I said, okay, yeah, we are in pretty good shape with what we've done. then we get into the whole, okay, are we adapted to the internet? And what about this antitrust thing? And so we have this schizophrenic thing where, are we so obsolete that nobody should care about us? Are we so dominant that we have to be split into pieces? I mean, which one is it? Just tell me, because we're dealing with both of those. And both had an element of truth to them. But, the fact that even after I've left and I'm just part-time giving advice, the fact that the company's done so well, I'm super happy about that. Steve took over and put his kind of mind-blowing energy into it. And, both Steve and I, were saying to the board, hey, we think Satya's the one. And, he and I knew he would do a great job. He's done even better than I expected. So it's nice. I always thought, oh God, I'm going to leave and the company's going to get screwed up and I'm not going to know what to do. Do I go back? Do I not go back? Oh, this is going to be torturous. The fact that, along with many other companies, it's doing incredibly well is a great thrill for me.
What do you hope the next 10 years might be like for Microsoft? Do you have a sense for where this company could go and where it might be in another decade?
Well, software is more important today than ever. And, it's almost so important and so powerful that at the level of society, thinking through, okay, how should people spend their time when the productivity that comes out of this is so gigantic, that we are going to face the challenge of success in how powerful the software is. Everybody wants this is very hyper competitive, and the big companies, Google really made most of their money from search, although they have other activities. Microsoft, kind of Office and Windows, Amazon, cloud and retailing. We've all, although there's some intense competition and overlap, we each have some areas of very high strength. As you get into AI, you're all kind of in the same, hey, we'll help you do your job type thing. And so I do think that hyper competition will be beneficial to users, that the pace of innovation will have to be very, very fast, despite the capital costs involved. And, these tools will just, improve very rapidly. I hope Microsoft can lead the way. I certainly, I brainstorm with the product groups of Microsoft about what we're doing, trying to make sure whether it's, AI to help write software or AI to do drug discovery, that Microsoft is in the lead.
There's this divide, it seems, between the consumer and the enterprise side inside Microsoft. And that is honestly one thing I've struggled with as a user of the Copilot products is the line between those two and when it's supposed to be chatty and when it's just supposed to, give you the answer to a complex business problem. Do you see that evolving? And I recognize that you're an advisor, not one of the executives, but I'm curious about your overall take on where that line might be.
Well, there's no doubt that as we were putting AI into search, the idea of, okay, which mode are you in?
Yeah.
Do you just want a quick answer, or is this a long brainstorming session? Making sure that you can move from one to the other and we're not mixing up those two. The whole industry is trying to figure this out. And do you use multiple tools, or is it one tool that's kind of adaptive in that way? Throughout the history of the company, whenever people thought we were overloaded or doing too much, which happened many times, people would say, oh, just do business software. Don't do this consumer stuff. Well, I never entertained that for a second, because your life of how you plan your schedule and, how you think about your taxes and, how you want to spend your summer, it's all unified. And so we had, periods where Google really had this consumer usage thing. And, people would say, oh, just let them have that. And you just be the serious office tools. Well, where do you put students, and where do you put, unless you get students, that's what they're learning when they go into the workforce. So the idea that we're still trying to span all those scenarios, that's very key. But the getting the different modalities, how many text boxes are there, and how do you help the machine know that? There's some incredible work going on. Even people like Brian McDonald is, back helping out with some projects. Anyway, there's a lot of experimentation inside Microsoft that I'm very excited about.
Dating back to the early days of Microsoft research, and even before that, you were talking about software, and then this whole notion of AI, and that was the term that you used. So this was something that was ingrained into Microsoft's DNA to some extent in terms of the advanced research very early on. How do you square that with the fact that Microsoft needed to partner with an outside company like OpenAI to really bring this into the fore? How does that make you think about the investments of the past and about the pragmatism of that decision that the company made to go with OpenAI as a key partner?
Well, OpenAI has done fantastic work. I mean, it's pretty amazing. In the early days of Microsoft, we didn't have a research group, and we were benefiting from the work that was done at universities, primarily some with government support, and IBM did have funded some research, even physics type research. And so we knew as our profits got larger, we wanted to have research. And we were super lucky. Nathan Myhrvold comes in, Rashid comes in, an incredible team of people. And so a huge asset of Microsoft ever since it got started is Microsoft research. I mean, for example, when we want to create Bing and catch up with the quality of Google search, it's that incredible depth at Microsoft research that lets us do that. When we want to think, okay, what is this AI stuff? What do we do? We had incredible people there. So I'm a huge believer that long-term investments that aren't necessarily connected to your current shipping cycle, that's been key to keeping us strong. Google's a very smart company, and if you had to say what single company has done the most AI advances, Google would be, super strong. And so the fact that Satya has maintained a strong AI team inside and has this mutually beneficial and complex relationship with OpenAI, that's very much to his credit. I'm thrilled that Microsoft has internal capability in all of its labs all over the world, incredible capability. I'm a big fan of Mustafa, who came in, who left Inflection and is running a big part of the AI push now. So I spend a lot of time with him and the great team that he brought that's now melded. So yeah, to lead in AI, there are very complex decisions about money to spend and which architecture to use. And, so far Satya's just done an incredible job, and I'll, continue to help with that. So it'll be a mix of great stuff from OpenAI and some stuff from inside the company.
The book is Source Code, My Beginnings. Bill Gates, thank you very much for talking with me.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks for listening. This podcast is part of our special Microsoft at 50 series, looking at the state of the company today and what's next through the context of its history and evolution. You can find a link in the show notes on this podcast and the related article on GeekWire.com for the full series on Microsoft at 50. Also, mark your calendars for March 20th for our special Microsoft at 50 event at Town Hall Seattle, featuring former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer and other special guests. Find a link in the show notes or the related article to the event site where you can register to join us. Thanks to Accenture for their support in making this project possible. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop. Thanks for listening. We'll be back this weekend with our regular weekly episode of the GeekWire podcast.